We have come to the end of the second day of questioning of the undercover police detective chief inspector Mike Dell, who headed the special demonstration squad between July 2001 and May 2005. He's been questioned further about his knowledge of Carlos Sarachi's deceptive sexual relationships with Lindsay and Donna McLean. He's been questioned around the fake bomb vest plot that Simon Wellings concocted and fingered the wrong person, made some racial stereotypes about someone as being an Arab, which wasn't the case. He got very defensive about that, saying, "Oh, just because an activist says something, it must mean that we're racist," which missed the point entirely. Anyway, I've joined with the full range of regulars. I'm not sure there's a point in introducing people anymore because you're used to everybody. But what have you made of the things we've heard from Mike Dell? Please grab the mic.
It's just been a pity parade.
He feels very sorry for himself.
He wants us to feel his pain at this special branch and this special SDS being called to account for all their shit. And if only we knew the truth. It's excruciating to watch. Not as bad as some of the others, but there's pain to be had with it all.
Yeah, he feels that we're not really appreciating. He got quite emotional at one point. I think he might have shed a tear when he was calling
Several times.
Yeah, but particularly at the point where he was calling Carlos Sarachi and James Thompson narcissistic, self-serving liars, which is a good line.
Well, it's a good line, but yeah, his whole thing is like, I'm the one that's been deceived. It's just like, read the room a second, mate.
Yeah, it takes one to know one, doesn't it? It's like,
yeah, it is. I'm not quite lost for words for him. He is just pathetic. He keeps talking himself into circles. The comment about kind of like, oh, the inquiry, like if an activist said it, then it must be true. Well, actually, apart from anything else, we're the ones who are actually providing concrete evidence of what happened and where it happened, because unlike the SDS, we didn't have a bonfire of all our reports, which is what he claimed today.
I mean, yeah, that was a wonderful thing where he said that he was told it by a former special branch officer. He was asked to name the officer. He said, "Oh, you won't have heard of him." It's like, oh, he goes to a different school, and he then had to write it down. He said, "It won't mean anything. The name won't mean anything to you." But he claimed that at the end of the SDS, there was a big bonfire that got rid of the majority of the. This was explained away while there was no file note about the meeting between Carlos Sarachi and John Beggs and himself about the cross-examination of Lois Austin in her case that she was bringing against the Met for being unlawfully detained at Piccadilly Circus. Was it Piccadilly Circus? Oxford Circus, out on May Day. We were constantly sort of presented with this thing where he was like, well, have you got the corroborative evidence for that? Is there a document? He claimed that he didn't remember meeting John Beggs. Then he answered questions about the meeting with him in hypotheticals. He said that he knew very well who John Beggs was, and he can't explain how he has no memory of meeting him, because you put John Beggs in the same class as Michael Mansfield, which for regular watchers will remember is the devil incarnate. But I mean, I don't think that's what you meant.
Isn't it sort of Michael Mansfield? Let's be clear. John Beggs will defend the police on anything, regardless. Mike Mansfield has a serious ethic code. They are not comparable. It's also just on your point on there is like the only in his narrative, only the documents that incriminate the SDS survived this bonfire. All the ones that would have exonerated them, they all got burnt.
Well, I mean, yeah, like everything else in the SDS, they could have done a very incompetent bonfire, but that would have been a bit ridiculous.
He was questioned extensively about the sexual relationships that Carlos Sarachi had. He said that despite the fact that Carlos Sarachi had admitted to him of having one sexual relationship, which he claims was a meeting that happened in October 2001, though Sarachi disputes this and says that it happened at least a year, if not more, later, and that he admitted to 2 sexual relationships, that he had no suspicions about him, and therefore did no checking whatsoever about the fact that he was moving into a 1-bedroom flat with a female activist. He said he thought it was a male activist, and he thought that was perfectly normal that 2 male activists would live together in a 1-bedroom flat. He says, when he was kind of quizzed on the sleeping arrangements for this, he said, "Well, it's not how you and I would live." But obviously as activists, different sort of human being. He said that There was three people. This is a point he made before, but I mean, he repeated it. That there was three people being deceived: the wife, the woman woman who's been deceived undercover, who were much more difficult to lie to than him. A mere detective chief inspector of a secret police unit that is specialised in snooping on people. For him to possibly to know that the officer was lying to him, just wasn't credible. I really noticed that this thing he had of like repeating certain like stock paragraphs that he'd said before, they were word for word. It wasn't just he was repeating the point; he was repeating the exact thing, suggesting he'd rehearsed them. Quite frankly,
Yeah, he definitely practiced those. It was very much. These are the questions because he's the only one who's admitted having watched loads of the inquiry. He's followed the evidence carefully. He's clearly given a lot of thought to what he's going to be asked and how he's going to answer those questions. He's got his stock responses. His problem is that his stock responses aren't standing up to scrutiny and they're just making him look absolutely ridiculous. And he's got nowhere to go with them. But yeah, he's definitely repeating those same lines that he's practiced.
If he doesn't know the answer, he keeps asking for, have you got a documental evidence for that? And if Sarah Hemingway doesn't have it immediately, he becomes very smug, or he says he can't remember it, or he responds he says something completely different to what he has said before. So instead of the answers that keep coming back, he's also contradicting himself.
And he's getting really, really irritated to the point that Mitting made another intervention at the end to essentially say, look, the question she's putting isn't just the inquiry's questions, it's coming from all the co-participants. This is the Rule 10 process. It's how we actually get the input. So don't take it out on the council of the inquiry. And it was just like, watch your tone, mate. And there's points where he seemed really emotional and from the stress of actually being held to account. And other times it's just like his irritation and arrogance really rang true.
And what you have to realize, really, when Mitting makes an intervention, he's not saying it in that many words, but it is a criticism of the witness. If he says, like, don't take it out on the inquiry, he's like, that's means that the chair is really irritated with how witness behaves.
And I think that was very telling as well, because I think yesterday, certainly when he started giving his evidence, and we were all saying that to start with, it was just like, oh, we've got one who might be answering questions and seems to have more of a memory. And yesterday, Mitting seemed more engaged with him, more likely to be sort of going along with what he said.
In the morning.
Yeah. And by now, like, he's just gone, oh, here's another one of those liars. Here's another one who's just not going to tell us what's going on. And that has to be treated with that same skepticism as the rest of them. So in terms of how he's looking at it, at least it looks like he's seeing through his performance as well at this point, hopefully.
And you can see that Mitting's face is not impressed, but also Dell's responses towards the end were becoming really childish. No, don't remember. I was like, I'm really annoyed that you're asking these questions. So I'm going to. It's like he was reverting back to just being a toddler. I was like, oh my God, you're a professional copper, mate.
I mean, I would warn against reading too much into the reactions of Mitting. I mean, I remember only last week when, actually, 2 weeks ago now, when Helen Steele was giving her first section of afternoon of evidence, when people thought, oh God, he seems so engaged, he's so engaged.
No, it's very true.
And then at the end, he gave the most insensitive question, which appalled everybody who heard it.
Yeah, but he also wrote back on that. Yeah, he sort of the next time she gave evidence, he kind of qualified his question, and he didn't excuse himself, but it came out very badly. Anyway. Yeah,
I mean, I think he had to do that because of the very strong representations that were made to him from Category H, that it was completely unacceptable. And quite frankly, if the inquiry wants people to cooperate with them, then there needs to show some level of respect, because it was entirely disrespectful. And I mean, it was very good that he did that, but I'm just saying that, we can't read too much into his reactions. I mean, it's always the case that people go, oh, this judge must get it, because it's overwhelming our argument.
Completely. But I think, it's still seeing that switch from how engaged he was yesterday morning to his plain irritation this afternoon. I completely agree. There is a sort of general point.
Because you don't actually, in the watching online, you don't get to see it. There's only those of us who are set in the right place in the hearing that actually gets to see the majority admitting his face and how it changed. It's a rare visit into the
I was going to say that you saying this is hilarious.
But I positioned myself opposite, I had a direct line to admitting, and I could see the face change. I was like, no, this is actually noticeable. This isn't just I will have my usual stoic face on. It's like, he's not impressed.
No. I mean, and it's, there's not very much that's impressive to hear from Mike Dell. He has been a very difficult witness this afternoon. He's been quite combative on a lot of occasions. Really trying to have it both ways. That it was very good of him to sort out James Thompson, and the fact that Carlos Saraki came to him, kind of duped him, and he's apologized for being smug whilst being incredibly smug. Oh my God, so smug. But like, he keeps coming back to, there was no reason to suspect. There was no reason to suspect. We were shown the Rent book, which, I mean, let's be honest, it's pretty clear to everybody is completely fraudulent. And he said, oh yes, that was only put together for the sake of the auditors, which, I mean, to me underlines that it was fraudulent and they were trying to cover it.
But they forged on a signature.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, that's okay. It's like you just scrape a little bit, and you see the it was the true with all the holidays they were based, and the junkets that were all clearly going on. Oh yeah, we'd have done all that property. It's like, but no, you didn't. One of the moments that really stood out for me though was towards the end, when they were discussing the situation of MT and the suicide bomb thing, because they didn't go into it was drunken pub talk, but also said, well, A squad protection people, they needed to know who to shoot. And it was just that real callousness that really came through at the end. It's like, somebody could have died because of your bad intelligence, and you didn't give a shit. To me, it was the moment that showed how cruel and callous he actually was.
And I mean, that was, I think you're completely right. It was absolutely shocking. But furthermore, that it was the wrong race. That like, if that intelligence would have had them shooting the wrong person, even if it was true that it was MT who done it, MT is not an Arab. Like, he wouldn't have been identified for an Arab if he really had been the person, which we know he wasn't. It was still wrong. And I mean, that was put to him in a couple of different ways. He was willfully ignorant, which is something we've seen repeatedly from him over the last 2 days, of pretending not to understand the question, latching onto something else that's been said as part of the question, and trying to answer that as if like it's a ridiculous thing to say. Like he's almost arguing with himself on hypotheticals. It's very frustrating to like follow the evidence.
Oh, incredibly frustrating. But yeah, I agree. I actually found that it was the speed and the directness of the way he just went, oh, so that's how A squad would know how to shoot. It was, yeah, as you said, it was callous. And that he just kind of immediately went there in the way that he went there. I did find that really, really chilling.
I mean, not least, and it should be reminded that this was intelligence that if a person does this, it's a fake stunt to embarrass. And it's still, oh yeah, we'd kill him.
Yeah. And this is it. Yeah, they knew that even if it had happened, it was a stunt, that it wasn't going to be a suicide bomber. And even if, you get to that point, and we know none of that is true, but if it had been true, then they'd have still shot him, like...
I think it comes back to this relativist approach he's got to the law, where it would be an unlawful killing, but like he doesn't mind about that. It doesn't really matter because it's police doing it, and they're somehow above the law in some way. Even though he's come back to repeatedly, well, we were police officers alongside the rest of the police service. All the same standards apply. But I mean, what the truth is that those standards in the police generally don't fucking apply.
And I think that's the thing. It's kind of like, I think for anyone watching this inquiry, it's really important to remember that you can't take this as a rogue unit. This is endemic of how the police operate across the board. And the analysis and the information that people take from this inquiry needs to be applied in that way. And also that it's not historical. That is still how the police are operating today.
Yes.
They operate on their own laws in their own way. And screw everyone else. And it's very likely that whatever conclusions come out of this inquiry, you keep hearing the phrase, "Oh, that rogue unit." Not the case at all. That this is how the police operate.
Yeah, absolutely, very much. And I think what we're seeing generally, like across the 2 days of evidence, is like the supposed change of approach of the SDS. He's talked about like changing of targeting and the fact that there would needed to be more evidential undercover officers going in, and they're like a different approach to certain areas of protest that actually, we need to start like prosecuting these people. And I mean, like, without getting too much into, but like that's what's happened in the last 16 years since we've exposed these officers, is that now, the police prosecute very heavily people for very minor things. We've seen it like a huge crackdown on some pretty basic sort of forms of protest activity, which we would have never worried about getting arrested for.
No, or even if we'd been arrested for them, that we would have been released without charge, or it wouldn't have gone anywhere. And now with the criminalization of protest, we're seeing people go to prison for years for things that we wouldn't have even been prosecuted for. I mean, where we are at the moment is quite obscene. But it's come from this exaggeration of language, this exaggeration of intelligence, this exaggeration of threat that has run through the SDS and has run through protest policing, because it benefits the interests of corporations, it benefits the interests of capital, and it benefits the interests of the state. And that's why we're in this position that we're in now, because so much of this was allowed to go unchecked, and they were allowed to put in all these false intelligence reports. They were allowed to exaggerate what people were doing.
The exaggeration of perceived threat. I mean, it should have been the slogan, really, of the unit. We've had some comments. Let's have a look. One here from Mr. Abney. I really wish council had shut him up a bit more. He was allowed to pontificate about a lot of irrelevant and hypothetical nonsense, especially towards the end of the day. It felt very rushed. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I noticed that in the past, when Barr has been, this thing of like where the witness turns back and says, well, have you got this? What about this? Barr would just would stop and say, I'm asking the questions. We want your memory. We're not going to show you any documents. I want your memory. That's why you're here. I think Sarah Hemingway, I'm not criticizing the way that she did her job, but I think she would benefit from taking that approach.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, there were elements today, like he kept reminding me of Hastings Harrison, because that's what he kept doing. He kept going, show me the report, and that kind of aggressive way that he was talking to her. But I will also say there's been quite a few things that have been muddled today that shouldn't have been muddled, that have been quite frustrating, things that we still need to go back to. That just haven't quite been asked properly, and and in fairness, like she is covering so much, and so many sort of different elements because she's had to cover so many of the different officers. But it has been quite frustrating at times, and yes, he's just been allowed to ramble and go around in circles and not answer questions.
And be rude about it at the same time.
Yeah. There's been plenty of rudeness. I mean, I really feel that like. Hearing Dell, having heard Gilbertson, having heard Hastings, it all makes a lot more sense. These are not individuals who've got a particular, they were a bit of an odd bloke. It's like that is the culture of the unit.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that's slightly coming up is, the issue of how to keep getting recruited, and they're recruiting to their own type. And, like with so much of this period of the unit, this is the climax of when you constantly recruiting for which you're in your own really, really small pool. And it's not a good look. It's very incestuous and has all the problems, the problems of incest. But you can see that they're all mates as well. There's little cliques going on, and you can't trust a word to say.
You really can't. I mean, we're back again tomorrow for another. I mean, at the end, Meeting suggested that we'll be finished early because there's some sort of ball sport happening, which is I mean, they never finished early for things I wanted to do, but there is theoretically a full day. Though I guess we'll be finishing early with the third day of questioning of Dell. There's still plenty, as you said, there's a lot to go back to. I feel. There's still whole areas that haven't been gone into yet. I mean, we've just started on Wellings. We haven't got into Hastings at all.
There's lots of news reporting that's still not been covered. There's whole sets of questions that we've put in.
Is there anything particular that you think we should look forward to tomorrow?
I think Hastings is going to be brutal because Hastings was such an obnoxious witness, and the account that Hastings gave is just painful. And I think this fella's just going to be really ham-fisted, and he's not going to realize just how awful he is. You know, and those of us who've all followed the Hastings sag, which is among the grimmest, you know, it's going to trigger warnings, shall we say?
Yeah, trigger warning. I mean, we've had throughout. Dell has referred to sexual abuse of women who are not activists as affairs, no different from any other affair.
By miscreants. You know,
Yeah.
It's like, sorry, they're state rapists, they're criminals, they're not miscreants, and this is where his language.
I mean, he hasn't even referred to Dave Evans as a miscreant, because it was just a member of the public that he deceived into a sexual relationship. So he doesn't even call him a miscreant. He says that he was relieved to hear that it was only a member of the public. Again, Maya was just a member of the public. She wasn't an activist. I would imagine he's going to refer to it in the same way in order to remain consistent.
Yeah, constant recategorization. It's like just driving for an action. That's not, you know, part of a you know, committing an offense. You know, conspiracy. You know, yeah, he's not the only one, but he's definitely one of the leading ones for let's just redefine anything awkward away.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's things like, you know, but even the things that he's trying to go, oh, that was really minor. Like he was asked about the authorizations for HN3, Jason Bishop having pirate DVDs and what he did with those. There was still a load of other questions that weren't asked around that side of things. But you know, as I said in evidence, and HN3 agreed with what I said in my statement, that he had these bin bags of DVDs. He had a lockup with DVDs. This wasn't this like small operation that he's then just kind of dismissed. We've had all the evidence that even HN3 has corroborated. It's not even coming from just me as a pesky lying activist.
But he said that he wouldn't get rich off it. I mean, his whole thing was it wouldn't get him rich.
So well, he's keeping the money for, you know. But
Yeah, right.
Get rich out of crime. Yeah, but yeah, he's constantly doing this downplaying. You know, it's like for somebody who has watched all the evidence, he's not done a very good story. It was like with the rent book and stuff like. You've seen something, you created this quick narrative in your head that plays it away, and as soon as somebody comes along and says, let's just scratch a little deeper, he falls apart. You know, you get the suspicion he's grown up in a place where he's never been told no.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good definition of the SDS as well.
All right, well, there's 74 people watching. Only one of you has liked. Please like these videos. It makes a huge difference to how visible any of this stuff is. We'll be back again tomorrow. Anything else anybody wants to add? Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again in the morning, 10 a.m. For the third and final day of evidence of Mike Dell.